All right, so let's go to Act 2. Also, I'm not sure what the syllabus says, but we're going to continue with Measure for Measure on Wednesday, even though I think you're reading the Intro to Garber for Wednesday, for Winter's Tale. So go ahead and read the Intro to Garber for Winter's Tale, but don't worry about reading Act 1, as the reading says, because we're not going to talk about Winter's Tale until next week. But I do want you to read the intro and get that over with so we don't have a backlog of reading for Monday. Okay. So, anybody remember what we were talking about on Wednesday? That's something about, we did the desire thing for Vincentio. Did we get to Angelo?
Can you put that PowerPoint on YouTube possibly?
Yeah. I will, and I'll have all the classes up, all the thank you. All the podcasts up too. All right, so now we did Vincentio, we haven't done Angelo, so now we have to do Angelo. All right, and go ahead. Uh-oh, catastrophe.
All back there.
Can you throw me one?
Rip that lovely mess out.
Thank you. All right. Angelo. Can you throw me another one?
I'm gonna miss this time.
I quit. Wow. So the solution, we already know, right? What the solution would be? Okay. All right. And before let's go ahead and hypothesize. What do we think, Angelo? Let's go back into Measure for Measure land. And so we've got Angelo. Does anyone have a picture of Angelo in their head? So let's do a kind of a composite picture. Like, how old do we think Angelo is?
40, yeah.
Somewhere between 30 and 40. Well, and 30 and 40 is not middle aged, whoever said that. Sore spot. Okay, is he, on a scale of 1 to 10, how hot is Angelo?
Like a 3.
A 3?
I was like 5. Yeah, no.
All right, so we've got a 3, 5, 7.
Averageable.
11? All right, so we'll just do a frequency distribution. Who all says he's over a 5? Okay. No way he's over a 5. It looks like we're right around half and half. Everyone who says he's over a 10. All right, yeah. Yeah, I think it works better if he's super hot. But but I mean I don't know. So facial hair.
Yes. Definitely. Yeah.
Full beard, mustache, soul patch, goatee. All right, so this is compelling. Clean shaven, uptight. Goatee, handlebar, or better yet, just the pencil thin little French. And gosh, I got to tell you, yeah, I lived in Vienna for a while, and I'm sure Vienna is a little bit different. Probably not all that much different because a lot of the buildings were there. Actually, not really. They were after, but Vienna was not like a creepy, sexy place. It was really sort of it's more German than Italian, even though it's kind of a hybrid. but it didn't really seem. If there were brothels, I did not find them. And I was there with my mom though, so. Okay, so we're across the board, across the spectrum, facial hair possibilities. All right, so our evidence that what's kind of our evidence that he might be good looking? Yeah, but on the other hand, it's not an unheard of thing for Marianas of the world to be enthralled with. Yes, sir.
Probably in good shape because he studies and fasts rigorously.
Yeah, I mean he's not going to be like lechery from a morality play. He's very disciplined. He probably would have qualified for the Boston Marathon and finished some 2 hours before the explosions. I thought nobody got killed. You're allowed to joke, aren't you?
No.
Oh, snap.
An 8-year-old girl died.
An 8-year-old girl? Okay. No Boston Marathons right
Like, we're like, ooh.
That's bad.
Too soon.
All right, way too soon. All right. Good thing those evaluations are in. Let's go to the text. So page 19, Act 2, because we've got to get out of Act 1 no matter what. All right. I think I've got some notes on this. So here we have Angelo explaining himself to Aeschylus. Okay, can I get an Angelo?
We must not make a scarecrow of the law, setting it up to fear the birds of prey, and let it keep one shape, till custom make it their purge and not their terror.
Okay, so so you picture the law as this old scarecrow, and just like in the Looney Tunes with all of the crows landed on top of the scarecrow. Does anyone grow corn like when they were kids? Anyone ever had a scarecrow? Yeah, you have?
Yeah.
Did it scare crows?
No.
Yeah, crows are pretty, and it doesn't even seem like crows are particularly afraid of real people. I have the experience with ravens, which I guess are not exactly crows, but they used to. There was a gang of them that would pick on the first graders that would eat lunch outside when I was a kid. They would go out in a gang and just come down screaming, and all the first graders would go running, and they would just grab all the food and take off before there's a big movement amongst neuroscientists and biologists to quantify consciousness. And they want to extend the rights of conscious beings to other animals like octopuses and great apes and ravens and that type of bird they have on the consciousometer. Interesting. I was glad to see octopuses on there. Octopi.
How do they determine which ones are conscious?
It's a elaborate and controversial series of tests and reactions and problem solving and demonstrated theory of mind and that sort of thing. But anywho, back to scarecrows. So the idea here is that the law for people to take it seriously has to strike out and punch somebody every once in a while. So, you're like the schoolyard bully, but if you never beat anybody up, like all of the threats eventually are going to go, Okay. Does this seem right? Does this make sense? Like if you never saw anybody get busted, would you bother to put your joint out when you got pulled over by the police? No? Okay. So, and then I think but is this tyranny? Well, let's go. Let's see what Aeschylus has to say about it. All right. So, but yet let us be keen and rather cut a little than fall and bruise to death. So, what does that mean? Just smack the kid around a little bit to enforce your bully rights, but you don't necessarily, got to break his face or anything, right? So it's like, all right, and then Aeschylus, because we know Aeschylus pretty well. He says, "Alas, this gentleman, whom I would save, had a most noble father." So here we go, this class thing again, right? So Aeschylus is like, "Hey man, I know the guy." So he's the king of the good old boy network. And da-da-da-da-da-da. And let's continue. Actually, let's have somebody read this. Anyone? Can we get an Aeschylus?
From the Alas.
Sure.
Alas, this gentleman, whom I would save, had a most noble father. Let your honor know, whom I believe to be most straight in virtue, that in the working of your own affections had time covered with place with wishing, or that the resolute acting of your blood did attain the effect of your own purpose. Whether you had not sometime in your life erred in this point which now you censure him, and pull the law upon you.
Fabulous. So point 1, we have Claudio's good family. And then point 2, someone can summarize the second point to me real quick. Give it back to me so I don't have to hear myself talk, which is getting grating, to be perfectly honest. Okay, fine. This, you know, hey man, we've all had urges, right, man? We gotta be realistic here. So Aeschylus, let's picture Aeschylus. Anyone says Aeschylus is over a 5? Under a 2? I think he's a solid 2. You got him at a 7?
-7.
-7? Yeah. So Aeschylus is a naughty, as we used to say. So he's an old geezer, and I don't know if you've ever encountered that. You probably haven't. Well, no, you probably have, fellows at least. Some old guy like telling you too much about his his feelings and emotions about things. Yeah. Yeah, I've got a professor here actually. But you know, what can you do? So then let's read Angelo's response. Can I get a new Angelo?
It is one thing to be tempted, Aeschylus, another thing to fall. I not deny the jury, passing on the prisoner's life, me and the sworn 12 have a thief or 2. Guiltier than him they try. What's open to made to justice, that justice seizes. What knows the laws that thieves do pass on thieves? 'Tis very pregnant. The jewel that we find, we stoop and take, because we see it. But what we do not see, we tread upon, and never think of it. You may not so accentuate his offense, for I have had such faults, but rather tell me, when I, that censure him, do so offend, let mine own judgment pattern out my death, and nothing come impartial. Sir, he must die.
Thank you. Okay, so that's fabulous. So in the first part, he kind of acknowledges the universality of temptation, right? It's one thing to be tempted, Aeschylus, another to fall. So that's just implying that, oh yeah, I've been tempted, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, but not fall. And then he talks about the jury passing on the prisoner's life. Man to sworn 12 had a thief or 2, guiltier than him they try. So this is the idea of the kind of overthrowing the throwing stones unless if you have no sins, right? It's like, well, yeah, everybody's got sins, but it's throwing stones is fun. So I mean, if the jury's got people that are guiltier than the people they're condemning, so it's just acknowledging this sort of hypocrisy in the sort of pragmatic deployment of the justice system, right? Kind of like everybody knows the justice system's corrupt. Does anyone here not think that the justice system's a little bit corrupt? Okay, so we're just going to all proceed as if we're all in a group, think that maybe the justice system's a little bit corrupt. And maybe once in a while, somebody that's guilty maybe gets away. Maybe somebody that's not gets sent to jail. Maybe Lindsay Lohan has not been publicly whipped. She'd probably like it. I'm really going today, aren't I? But then he says, what's open made to justice, that justice seizes. So, what does that mean? What does if open to justice mean? If open made to justice. Okay, wow. All right. If it means if you get busted, you're busted. And he's acknowledging that it's sort of random that you might get busted, but when you get busted, you've got to like see it happen, and that puts fear in. So strictness per se, I'm always explaining this to my children. Being strict is not being tyrannical, right? Like if you know what to expect, like being strict is not being, what's tyranny? Like what's
Over the top restrictions.
okay, over the top is strict, but even if it's really consistent, you at least know it's coming, right? And then we can evoke the colostomy principle because, like you get used to hanging if you hang there long enough. But as long as it's consistent, it's fair. So, if you know every single time that you don't flush the toilet, I'm going to come in screaming at you. But as long as I do it every time, it's not tyranny. I might be being an ass, but it's not unfair, right? Because you know what to expect, cause and effect, right? So like the quizzes every day, right? So I mean, it's really strict that I give you quizzes every day, and I'm an ass for it, but I'm not a tyrant because you know what to expect. It would be worse, well, better. Like I would get in your head more if I just gave you pop quizzes, right? And made them worth like a third of your grade. That'd be cool. You just don't know when it's coming, but one day you're going to have a pop reading quiz, and it's for a full third of your grade. Now we're starting to get into tyranny territory, right? Okay. So the idea is even the strictest government, as long as it's transparent and consistent, it's fair, but it's also exploitable. So, like you can't theoretically have, well, I mean, theoretically I guess you can, but in practice, you can't have a government that's so strict that you can't ever get away with anything if it's consistent, right? So say cameras cover 95% of the city, and they have people manning all of the cameras all the time. But as long as I know where they are and how they work, I don't have to behave because I'll find the 5% of the city that's not covered and get my I don't know, what kind of thing. What would I do if the cameras aren't on me? Speeding. I can speed naked, right? It'll be fun. Ha-ha, in the 5% of the city. And then stop and put on a bow tie. And it'll be fun. So, it's been long suspected, and they just a few years ago they declassified the famous Kubark CIA interrogation manual. Anyone familiar with this? This is fun. So it's what they used to use to interrogate prisoners, and it explains the logic of it. And one of the things they noticed in torturing various prisoners was that explicit death threats are not really effective. You say, "I'm going to kill you if you don't give us the information." So they're just like, "Fine, kill me." Like the thing that really screwed with people was not having a clear threat and having them deal with vague uncertainty. You never know what's going to happen from one day to the next. Not giving them rigorous schedule of torture, just coming in, flying out of the blue, being really nice sometimes, being just totally crazy, shocking, waterboarding other times. This really messes with you. So it's the uncertainty.
Well, because it gives them hope and then it eats their brain.
Yeah, well, they don't. It's because of the colostomy thing. Like we want to know, even if it's the worst news, as long as we can, as long as we know it's coming and we can count on it. So, and we know that Hal knew this, so we know Shakespeare knew this, because we remember Hal from keeping everybody on their toes and being mysterious or whatever. Pop quizzes, random drug tests, arbitrary enforcement are better ways to stress people out and make yourself scarier if you're in charge. If you get drug tests every week, you just stop smoking, right? If you don't know when it's coming, you're all paranoid and on meth at Taco Bell. I was thinking of a person that I used to know that was always paranoid and on meth at Taco Bell. And every time I talk to her, she's just freaking out about possibly getting a drug test. I'm like, I don't think it'd be good business practice for Taco Bell to do drug tests. You've got a pool of employees, but it's only so big, It's I really do, man. I didn't behave before, so it's not. But so the idea here is that in order to be consistent, Angelo says, because Angelo actually doesn't want to be all tyrant and crazy and kooky. He's like, every time somebody breaks the law, you have to consistently jump on it. That seems pretty cool. But you know, like as I sort of hinted at earlier, that still is sort of uncertain because you never know when you know who's going to get caught, and it's not necessarily fair who gets caught, as we see in this, right? Like Claudio is probably the least criminal person in the whole play. I mean, he's kind of a nozzle, but I mean he's not a criminal, right? Does anyone think he should be killed besides me? I was really disappointed that he wasn't. But okay, and then yeah. And Claudio and Isabella and Aeschylus all comment about this arbitrary chance force of the law, but they seem to think it's fair. So we got down here Aeschylus on 37, and he's failed in his attempt to get Angelo to lighten up, and he says, "Well, heaven forgive him and forgive us all. Some rise by sin and some by virtue fall. Some run from breaks of ice and answer none, and some condemned for a fault alone." So it's just yeah, it's random, you know. It's basically just the justice system just works by throwing bricks off the building, but you know you punish the person that gets hit by the brick that you throw off the building, and there's something fair about it. So let's go to page 11 to see Claudio on this. Yeah, thus can the demigod authority make us pay down for our offense by weight, the words of heaven, on whom it will, on whom it will not so, yet still 'tis just. So he's on the one hand he says it's completely unjust, and on the other hand he says, 'tis just. And then Isabella on 31, when she says, "Oh, just but severe law, I had a brother then, heaven keep your honor." So this idea of, yeah, it's totally arbitrary and completely unfair, but it's justice, I don't really understand. One thing that I do like is this mysterious, the jewel that we find, we stoop and take it because we see it. But what we do not see, we tread upon and never think of it. So what's the jewel that he's talking about in this sort of parable? So he just talks about when you see a crime or a sin, you punish it. So the jewel that you would pick up would be crime or the sin. So that's a little bit kind of a weird thing to call a jewel, especially if you're a veritable, given an unlimited supply of coal, you could probably supply the whole world with diamonds. No, okay, I'm sorry. There used to be something called being anal retentive, and the idea was that you had a really tight butt, and so with the unlimited coal and crushing, it takes a lot of geological amount of pressure. I think it tons. But you know you're getting somewhere when you're explaining your jokes. No, I'm a comic theorist. It's funny because of the discrepancy, and there's a divisional charge. Okay, yeah, whatever. Yeah, so there's a jewel. So remember Claudio on page 10 complaining about Angelo's special charge of him getting paraded around town. So so Claudio didn't really mind getting busted, but he was getting paraded around town, and that's when Lucio et al. See him, and he asked the representative, what are you parading me around town for? And it was a special charge. So apparently this was a common practice back then, as a society moved from what they call a shame punishment culture to a quantitative punishment culture. So think like Scarlet Letter. So apparently people used to care if you were ashamed, like it was, like shame on you, and you'd feel bad. And apparently it still works in some hunter-gatherer societies or whatever. But again, seeing the crime as a jewel to be picked up and not tread upon is as being something precious. It's a little bit weird to me. But so I'm thinking that Angelo kind of seems to think that Claudio's crime and his punishment is a desirable thing to fixate on. Look at this. You may not so extenuate, which means to mitigate or lessen, right, his offense, for I have had such faults. But rather tell me, when I, that censure him, do so offend, let mine own judgment pattern out my death, and nothing come impartial. Sir, he must die. So here Angelo admits to having such faults and expresses a desire to be punished for it. So, I mean, on the one hand, we just say, oh, this is ironic because this is exactly what happens to him. But, okay, we can follow the morality play, but let's just look at what he says. So, and so he kind of is just, he's into it. So it's sort of it's kind of a golden rule argument. Anyone know the golden rule? Okay, and can someone tell me what the famous masochistic objection to the golden rule might be?
But I won't hurt myself.
Yeah, if I'm into getting whipped and boots stepped on my head and being humiliated and peed on, then you don't want that person to treat thy neighbor as thyself, right? So so this is kind of the problem with Angelo. Angelo's into getting discovered, outed, and punished. And so he's doing to Claudio exactly what he would want done to him. So it's a moral conundrum. So I put forth that Angelo is in fact not a hypocrite. Because, I mean, how does he, and a lot of us got this wrong, so let's remember this. What does he ask for at the end when he's outed? Yeah, a swift and just death. He's totally fine with it. As if that's what he wanted. So we can look at it. We probably should. I have a feeling this is going to be on the test. O my dread Lord, I should be guiltier than my guiltiness, to think I can be undiscernible when I perceive your grace. But he sounds like a hysteric here. Like power divine hath looked upon my passes. Then, good prince, no longer session hold upon my shame, but let my trial be mine own confession. Immediate sentence then, and subsequent death, and sequent death is all the grace I beg. So he doesn't even want a trial. This is my trial, I admit it. Kill me, O grace. Sounds like St. Teresa. It's your golden shaft of ecstasy and pierce me with it. She said it, not me, man. So in this weird sort of way, his sort of tragic error is having too much empathy. Because, he gives Claudio exactly what he himself wants. And then this would suggest to me that he's just dying to find somewhere to fall. He's looking for that jewel to pick up so he can get in on this exposure and punishment action. So let's go work on his little desire graph now here. So desire 1. So what's his ostensible desire? Okay, I'll put that as just since it doesn't matter. To be punished. I'm going to put to fall. Because it's fun. As D.H. Lawrence once said, we invented sin because we enjoy the feeling of being naughty. And then I'm also going to put up just mine to as one of these. And this is, not one or two. Just do all of these. He wants to encounter resist temptation. And I say that because he's talking about, everyone's tempted, but not everyone falls. So I think part of him wants to, as the great poet John Milton said, to encounter sin in all of its pleasure and all of its, nuance, sensuous delight, and to triumph anyway, because he said in something I quote often that a untested virtue is an excremental whiteness, like white poop. So he was like, go to the parties, go to the orgies, just don't do anything. I don't think it's a good strategy.
Sounds like a voyeur. Sounds like a voyeur.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Sorry.
Target.
just leave it. I'll just.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So, and his relationship with knowledge. I don't know that it's that important, but what's his relationship with knowledge? Is that it?
His brain.
Okay. I'm going to say ocular proof. I don't think it matters. Maybe. So, but then we remember before what his in his first lines to the Duke, he said that I come to know your pleasure. So his desire probably has something to do with that too. And remember the hysteric triangle, right? So, so what's the hysteric's object? Yeah, no clue. And so they want this because they want this person that's intact enough to tell them what to do. So then you start looking at the end of, and we'll get back to this, but when Angelo is so thoroughly skewered and so caught and so seen through and just and he's just blown away by the Duke's perceptive power and judgment and everything. So that's really kind of what he wants, right? He's just like, wow, he's found the capital F father. This is the guy. Delightful. Kind of like Desdemona. So the other solution besides death would then be the mythical adequate father with a capital F. That's up to the task of enforcing the system of punishment. So far we've got Vincentio, who we've decided is, and by we I of course mean the royal we, decided is a hysteric. And then we've got Angelo, who looks like he might be a hysteric too. And then we've got some other people too that might also be hysterics. And then something to kind of note in passing as we look at this. So we've kind of had this highfalutin, difficult, psychologically rich, sort of dark discussion of justice. But what happens, immediately after the conversation that we were just looking at? If I can find the page. So who comes in after Aeschylus gives his spiel about the arbitrary but just? Yeah. So it just goes right to farce. And I mean, this is great. And poor elbow. But so the so does a constable? What's a constable?
Cop.
Mm-hmm. So elbow's the cop. That's kind of funny, right? And then we have Pompey, the pimp, who I actually find myself, Pompey might very well be the only likable person in the play. And so let's do a little something like this. Let's go to page 24, and we'll do a little dramatic enactment, starting on 141. Beseech you. I want to be elbow. I need a Pompey. A Pompey, and I think I also need an Aeschylus. Can I get an old geezer Aeschylus? All right. I beseech you, sir, ask him what this man did to my wife.
I beseech your honor, ask me.
Well, sir, what did this gentleman do her?
I beseech you, sir, look in this gentleman's face. Good Master Froth, look upon his honor. 'Tis for a good purpose. Doth your honor mark his face?
Aye, sir, very well.
Nay, I beseech you, mark it well.
Well, I do so.
Doth your honor see any harm in his face?
Why, no.
I'll be supposed look upon a book. His face is the worst thing about him. Good then, if his face be the worst thing about him, how could Master Froth do the constable's wife any harm? I would know that of your honor.
He's in the right. Constable, what say you to it?
First, and it like you. The house is a respected house. Next, this is a respected fellow, and his mistress is a respected woman.
By this hand, sir, his wife is a more respected person than any of us all.
Varlet, thou liest. Thou liest, wicked varlet. The time is yet to come that she was ever respected with man, woman, or child.
Sir, she was respected with him before he married with her.
Which is the wiser here, justice or iniquity? Is this true?
O thou caitiff! O thou varlet! O thou wicked Hannibal! I respected with her before I was married to her. If ever I was respected with her, or she with me, let not your worship think me the poor duke's officer. Prove this, thou wicked Hannibal, or I'll have mine action of battery on thee.
If he took you a box over the ear, you might have your action of slander too.
Mary, I thank your good worship for it. What is it your worship's pleasure I should do with this wicked caitiff?
Truly, officer, because he hath some offences in him, thou wouldst discover, if thou couldst. Let him continue in his course till thou knowest what they are.
Mary, I thank your worship for it. Thou seest, thou wicked varlet, now what's come upon thee. Thou art to continue now, thou varlet. Thou art to continue. And we'll just end it there. So that was a fun little comic thing, right? So start at 142. So I beseech you, sir, ask him what this man did to my wife. What does this remind us of? From maybe Othello? Yeah, prove my love a whore. Incidentally, Othello might have been the next play that was written after this, and if not, it was close on the heels. So that kind of might color your perception of Othello as being Othello, being elbow being written large. Who knows? So then on line 167-ish is a version of, remember Cavell's point that what Othello is really terrified of is that Desdemona is respected or faithful, and so his language kind of betrays. I have no idea if this. Well, yeah, I do actually. This is what elbow means, and so he says, "Thou liest, wicked varlet. The time is yet to come that she was ever respected with man, woman, or child." So I mean, if we read that in the Cavell's Othello light, then like he's really terrified that she really is respected, and like what he really wants her to be is a whore, which is apparently the double entendres of language are working against elbow. But if we compare elbow to Othello, that's exactly what elbow's trying to accomplish. Which is it funny or sad? I don't know. So both are sort of unknowingly insistent that they be made known in public cuckolds. It's a good thing that we're not talking about that cuckold porn and sperm competition anymore. But it is funny. Were you there for that class? I have nightmares about it. It's really I blushed on camera. Yeah. So like Othello, though, Elbow doesn't get the jokes he's making on himself. And then he becomes the butt of an inside joke between Pompey and Aeschylus, right? Because Pompey and Aeschylus are like, get a load of this fool, right? And they're kind of making jokes along with it. So the bonding joke logic, or the Freudian origin of. Anyone familiar with Eve Sedgwick's homosocial triangulation thing? Anyone? The homosocial triangulation thing between men. It's a big feminist thing. So it's the logic of the two-dude threesome. And that they just use the woman as a go-between because they really want their homosocial bonds. And trading the father, like giving his daughter to the husband is really a transaction between two men, and the women are just kind of the currency that allows males to bond with each other. I don't really think this is what's going on here because unless Elbow's a woman, but the joke logic. I mean, we do see it kind of with Isabella. We'll do it in the triangle. Because everyone needs to know about this. This is important stuff. This is jokes. So Y is the guy that makes the joke. And then A is the object of the joke. So it's I don't know. I haven't been involved in woman-to-woman jokes. But in jokes I've encountered, it's like women or like minorities, Poles. What else are the object of obscene jokes? Or rude jokes, jokes in bad taste. Jews.
Blondes.
Blondes. Excellent. All right, that's good enough. And then X is the person. So this is kind of works the same as the honor, right? Because who bestows the funny on the joke? Yeah. So this is actually sort of the position of power. But when X laughs and accepts the joke, it paradoxically makes X subservient to the person that made the joke, and it creates a bond, right? So if Y makes a joke about blondes and X laughs, then they bond off this shared perspective of, like we're both anti-blondes, right? And so it creates this, these two get included and this gets excluded. Make sense? Okay. So we've all experienced the bond of shared laughter and inside jokes. Because, there's really nothing. That's how you know, like, who your real friend is, when you guys have inside jokes. And, like, Crumbo does something stupid and you just look at each other and you're like, yeah. Oh. Made myself feel bad. And we all have a friend of a friend who's felt the exclusion and humiliation at being the butt. Kind of like the Duke with Lucio, right? Lucio keeps making jokes about the Duke, right, and tries to get him included, and the Duke's like, well, actually, so it's sort of like it's like if somebody didn't know that their friend was a Jew and he keeps making Jew jokes, and well, actually, well, Freud was a Jew and he loved Jew jokes.
He was Freud. But he was Freud.
That's true. All right. So evolutionary psychologists trace separate origins for smile and laughter in primates. This is kind of important. So a smile they call a silent bared teeth or fear grin, used to signal submission by inferiors, and sort of don't worry by dominant monkeys. So we think this is always really annoying. Like if the boss or like the popular kid makes a lame joke, or like when you go to a lecture and they make a lame joke and all the tools laugh, and you're just like, my God, that wasn't even funny, you tools. You should just go up and lick his boot. So it's sorry, it's never happened to me in rhyme. I get these hypothetical, and I just lose myself in the. And then laugh is a different thing. It's they call it relaxed open mouth panting behavior, and it usually occurs in playful contexts. And so like play wrestling, like little monkeys play wrestling and stuff. That's laughter. So so the smile laughter or the fear grin is really kind of what's going on in jokes, and it's mean, and it's exclusory, and it's about dominance and subservience and all that kind of fun stuff. So Aeschylus and Pompey bond over jokes at Elbow's expense. And also remember the kind of question of whether Aeschylus gets what's going on. I think maybe Aeschylus might be getting what's going on, because he definitely gets the innuendo here and plays with it. And then the other social bond thing is Aeschylus and Master Froth, which we didn't get to. They bond over the shared social status. And Aeschylus kind of treats him like an errant nephew or son. It's just like, all right, I know we all had our time with prostitutes. Lord knows I've been there. But, you got to be low-key about it, and you got to make sure that, when the cops come, you're not around, just like I do. And so nobody gets punished except for who? Huh? Elbow. Yeah, so Aeschylus says, truly, officer, because he hath some offenses in him that thou wouldest discover if thou couldest. Let him continue in his courses till thou knowest what they are. So he's telling the Master Froth to keep on having sex with Elbow's wife until Elbows can figure it out. Well, that's not nice. So Aeschylus wants the status quo to continue until Elbow discovers his humiliation. You guys aren't feeling for elbow? Well, it's not a tragedy, so it'll never happen. Okay. 6 minutes.
Is he called elbow because the point of your elbow is dull and not pointy and sharp and smart? Sharp.
Yes. I don't think that's wrong at all. That's Did anybody think elbow was really funny? I mean, are we to that level now where we're getting elbows? Yeah, oh well. What are you gonna do? So we have got this new thing to start. I wanted to watch a YouTube clip of scene Act 2, Scene 2, but the clip is 10 minutes. We have 6 minutes, 5 minutes now. I could do it at double speed. Well, we can just do it next class. So let's talk about something then. We'll circumvent it, and let's do a hypothetical of Izzy, because we're gonna get to Izzy next time. So we'll do this as a lead-in to next class. So what does Izzy want? All right, so I have somebody says her brother to be killed, to be punished, that makes up for the fumble. Okay. What else maybe? Bubble bath. Ought to be a nun. So, being a nun in Protestant England, off the hills of Bloody Mary, where there's not allowed to be a nun in England anymore. All the monasteries have been burnt down. So how do you think we're supposed to think of, I don't know, how do Protestants feel about perpetual virginity? Do Protestants have nuns?
No.
So how are we supposed to, so if we put ourselves back to, we're in the pit in Shakespeare's day, and so we can put Catholics as the butt of jokes. Everybody's, there's Catholics, and it's more tolerant, but like you can't go to school and stuff if you're Catholic. Like they don't actually burn you all the time anymore, but it's still not really cool. And then you've got this play with this woman that wants to be a nun, and we kind of know that in comedies, right? Comedies, is sex a good thing or a bad thing in comedies, really? Like who wins? The people that want to have sex or the people who don't? Yeah. So we go back to, we remember kind of Fry's take on comedy, and it's all about like festive and fertility and all that crap, right? So that's she's not really being festive or fertility, right? And you look at the bad guys in comedies, they're always killjoys. We didn't do Merchant of Venice, but if those of you familiar with Merchant of Venice, Shylock he's a killjoy. Or Twelfth Night, anyone's seen or read Twelfth Night? Malvolio. Malvolio's this type of person, and usually these are the only people in comedies that you're allowed to kick and completely humiliate and screw over, and it's just funny because we're just all like laughing at like stupid Shylock. That's what he gets for being a Jew, haha. Or Malvolio, he's just, oh yeah, he stuck to his principles and and he fell in love. What a dumbass, right? So we might have to consider looking at Isabella as this kind of character, but we'll see. And oh yeah, I've got quizzes to pass back, so we'll just do that. All right, so let's go to Act 2. Also, I'm not sure what the syllabus says, but we're going to continue with Measure for Measure on Wednesday, even though I think you're reading the Intro to Garber for Wednesday, for Winter's Tale. So go ahead and read the intro to Garber for Winter's Tale, but don't worry about reading Act 1 as the reading says, because we're not going to talk about Winter's Tale until next week. But I do want you to read the intro and get that over with so we don't have a backlog of reading for Monday. Okay, so anybody remember what we were talking about on Wednesday? That's something about, we did the desire thing for Vincentio. Did we get to Angelo?
Can you put that PowerPoint on YouTube possibly?
Yeah. I will, and I'll have all the classes up, all the thank you. All the podcasts up too. All right, so now we did Vincentio, we haven't done Angelo, so now we have to do Angelo. All right, and go ahead. Uh-oh, catastrophe.
All back there.
Can you throw me one?
Wrote that lovely message.
Thank you. All right. Angelo. Can you throw me another one?
I'm gonna miss this time.
Anyone, and everyone who says he's over a 10. All right, yeah. Yeah, I think it works better if he's super hot. But but I mean, I don't know. So facial hair.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
Full beard, mustache, soul patch, goatee. All right, so this is compelling. Clean shaven, uptight. Goatee, handlebar. Or better yet, just the pencil thin little French. And gosh, I got to tell you, yeah, I lived in Vienna for a while. And I'm sure Vienna is a little bit different. Probably not all that much different because a lot of the buildings were there. Actually, not really. They were after. But Vienna was not like a creepy, sexy place. It was really sort of it's more German than Italian, even though it's kind of a hybrid. But it didn't really seem. If there were brothels, I did not find them. And I was there with my mom though, so. Okay, so we're across the board, across the spectrum, facial hair possibilities. All right, so our evidence that what's kind of our evidence that he might be good looking? Yeah, but on the other hand, it's not an unheard of thing for Marianas of the world to be enthralled with. Yes, sir.
Probably in good shape because he studies and fasts rigorously.
Yeah. I mean, he's not going to be like lechery from a morality play. He's very disciplined. He probably would have qualified for the Boston Marathon and finished some 2 hours before the explosions. I thought nobody got killed. You're allowed to joke, aren't you?
No.
Oh, snap.
An 8-year-old girl died.
An 8-year-old girl? Okay. No Boston Marathon.
Like, we're like, ooh.
That's bad.
Too soon.
All right, way too soon. All right. Good thing those evaluations are in. Let's go to the text. So page 19, Act 2, because we've got to get out of Act 1 no matter what. All right. I think I've got some notes on this. So here we have Angelo explaining himself to Aeschylus. Okay, can I get an Angelo?
We must not make a scarecrow of the lost, setting it up to fear the birds of prey, and let it keep one shape, till custom make it their perch and not their terror.
Okay, so you picture the law as this old scarecrow, and just like in the Looney Tunes with all of the crows landed on top of the scarecrow. Does anyone grow corn like when they were kids? Anyone ever had a scarecrow?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have?
Yeah.
Did it scare crows?
No.
Yeah, crows are pretty, and it doesn't even seem like crows are particularly afraid of real people. I have the experience with ravens, which I guess are not exactly crows, but they used to. There was a gang of them that would pick on the first graders that would eat lunch outside when I was a kid. They would go out in a gang and just come down screaming, and all the first graders would go running, and they would just grab all the food and take off before there's a big movement amongst neuroscientists and biologists to quantify consciousness, and they want to extend the rights of conscious beings to other animals like octopuses and great apes, and ravens, and that type of bird they have on the consciousometer. Interesting. I was glad to see octopuses on there. Octopi.
How do they determine which ones are conscious?
It's a elaborate and controversial series of tests and reactions and problem solving and demonstrated theory of mind and that sort of thing. But anywho, back to scarecrows. So the idea here is that the law for people to take it seriously has to strike out and punch somebody every once in a while. So, you're like the schoolyard bully, but if you never beat anybody up, like all of the threats eventually are going to go, Okay. Does this seem right? Does this make sense? Like if you never saw anybody get busted, would you bother to put your joint out when you got pulled over by the police? No? Okay. So, and then I think but is this tyranny? Well, let's go. Let's see what Aeschylus has to say about it. All right. So, aye, but yet let us be keen and rather cut a little than fall and bruise to death. So, what does that mean? Just smack the kid around a little bit to enforce your bully rights, but you don't necessarily, got to break his face or anything, right? So it's like, all right, let's, and then Aeschylus, because we know Aeschylus pretty well. He says, alas, this gentleman whom I would save had a most. Wow. So the solution, we already know, right? That the solution would be? Okay. All right. And before let's go ahead and hypothesize. What do we think, Angelo? Let's go back into measure for measure land. And so we've got Angelo. Does anyone have a picture of Angelo in their head? So let's do a kind of a composite picture. Like, how old do we think Angelo is?
30.
Somewhere between 30 and 40. Well, and 30 and 40 is not middle age, whoever said that. Short spot. Okay, is he, on a scale of 1 to 10, how hot is Angelo?
Like a 3.
A 3?
5.
All right, so we've got a 3, 5, 7.
Averageable.
11. All right, so we'll just do a frequency distribution. Who all says he's over a 5? Okay, no way he's over a 5. It looks like we're right around half and half.